As for my other announcements for today, we have assignment 2 that's due today. There are some issues with the tests particularly in Windows environments. Thank you for all the TAs and for all the students who pointed that out. Education team is currently working on that if they haven't already fixed that. For the time being, if you're on a Windows machine, if you push it up to GitHub, that should resolve the issue. If the tests pass in GitHub, then you should be all set. And thank you for everybody who came out yesterday to the get together. I feel like I should have advertised this a little bit more, but it was a nice chill time. I got to meet some people from the new St. Louis cohort, so hopefully we'll have the chance to get another one of those going, and also have the opportunity to see some other people for some maybe smaller study groups during the week. But if you are interested in one of those, the easiest way is to just start a thread in St. Louis, or get 3 or 4 or 5 people together and shoot me a message, say, hey, we'd like to reserve this space for a Wednesday or Friday. We'd like to be here on this date, and I'll make it happen. I hope you guys have an awesome class, and that is all for me. Thank you, Carrie.
Thanks, Colin. All right. We are going to get started here. Okay, so today we are going back to Spring. We took one class off to talk about exceptions and some of the tools for debugging in IntelliJ. And now we're getting back to Spring. We're going to learn about Thymeleaf templates. So this is chapter 13. So speaking of the number 13, on class 13, coming up on the 12th of October, there's no lecture planned for that class. It's kind of a break night for you guys to get one extra catch-up class in of sorts, but we also have a panel of Launch Code alumni coming to speak to you and answer questions about their experiences with doing the career prep module and capstone projects in Unit 3, also known as Liftoff. Their apprenticeship program and their careers so far, for those of them who've had some time to build that. So that'll be really beneficial. We've done this before, and I know everyone really appreciated the perspectives of people who have come before you and pulled this hard thing off, which is difficult to do. Okay, so graded assignment number 3 is going to be due on the 23rd, so you've got some time. You've got 3 weeks. That's the MVC edition of Tech Jobs, and we are partway through all of the material that you need for this. Going all the way back and starting with polymorphism and Spring and all of that, all the way up through learning about models and model validation. That's all the material. So we need to get some classes under our belt the next couple of weeks here, and then you guys will know everything you need to know to do this. And I will do an intro video as soon as I have time, probably later this week, to give you guys, the usual kind of orientation to the assignment. That's all I got. Let me go ahead and get into lecture. So we're going to talk about Thymeleaf. These are just HTML templates, but they have some extra syntax that work really well with Spring for a Java web app. We'll talk about using these templates as part of your Spring Boot project. I'm going to talk about redirection. What if you want a handler and your controller, instead of sending them to a template, to just send them back to a page that's already handled? I'll show you the syntax for that. And then we'll talk about Thymeleaf syntax within the templates itself, how to pass data dynamically from a controller handler to a Thymeleaf template. Oops. Let me go back. I'll talk about how to loop, how to use conditional, syntax with Thymeleaf. We'll talk about fragments, which is really useful when you want to have the exact same block of, HTML code to be able to just be placed on any page you want. It's especially good for like the head of your HTML document where you want to have all the same imports for everything. and, refer to the same style sheets, that sort of thing. It's great for headers, and, nav menus, footers, things like that. So we'll look at what that looks like. And then we'll talk about linking to static resources like images. So let's get into it. So templates in Spring Boot. First of all, let's talk about the file structure. You want to organize all of your templates inside source, main, resources, and templates. So you can kind of see that, structure here. And you'll notice that Java is the folder, we have that controllers folder in there for the actual Java files. Basically, all your Java is going to go somewhere in Java. We're going to start creating more subdirectories as we go on with learning additional things. But then this other one that's alongside Java resources, this is where like static is where your like images and CSS files go. And then templates is where all of your HTML files as but specifically Thymeleaf templates are going to go inside there. And there is some additional syntax involved to basically make an HTML file into a Thymeleaf template. You have to make sure Thymeleaf has been added to your project as a dependency, first of all, which you can do either by selecting it as one of the dependencies from the beginning when you use Spring Initializer at spring.start.io, or is it start.spring? Yeah, anyway, start.spring.io. You can do it there, or you can go into your build.gradle file and add it later. So either way, and then just rebuild your project. And then in the HTML files themselves, you want to have this extra bit right here that has the XMLNS:/TH that tells it to allow, this is where you're getting the source in order to allow this syntax. And then all your Thymeleaf syntax will work. It will know how to interpret it. So one little thing to note, I think Chris mentions this in his videos too. Thymeleaf requires all self-closing tags to have that slash at the end. Normally, with just regular old HTML, you could kind of get away with it either way. But with Thymeleaf, you need to make sure you always include that. So common examples are, the image tag, the input tag. These are all self-closing tags. Just make sure you've got that slash in there. Okay, so that's the basics of, kind of setting yourself up to be able to do this. Let's talk about what the controller looks like when you want to start using it in conjunction with these templates. So if you have a controller method, a handler, that you want to return a template instead of, plain HTML or text like we did 2 classes ago, you can just return the template name. So as a string. The key here, oh yeah, and let me say this first. Spring Boot knows to look in that templates folder in this directory. So, you might say, I want to return the index, and it knows just to look in templates and find index.html. So as long as your files are where they're supposed to be and you have the path to them correct, which I'll get more into how that works in a minute, then you're good. It will be able to find it. But the key is you cannot have that response body annotation on there. So you remember 2 classes ago, we used response body to make sure that Spring knew that it was just supposed to return whatever, strings you had that you were returning, that you literally are going to send that to the browser and say, this is what I want you to put on the page, right? So we were just, even our HTML, we were returning it as text, as strings, but then it was showing up on the page the way we intended. Well, now we want to be able to just give a file name or a path with a file name. And we're putting it in as a string, but we don't want we don't want it to open our page and for it to say index on the page, right? So that's where that response body annotation needs to be taken back off. So that's the distinction there. So we're going to be doing that. And let's see. I'm going to keep going for a minute because there's a couple more things I want to talk about before we do a little bit of live coding. But you can return templates, but what if you wanted to redirect and just send them to a page that you've already handled with another handler method? You can do that. And, in a post handler, let's say that you got some data from a form and you want to, last time we just kind of sent them to another page that, we created some more HTML for it to put on the page that was different. But what if I didn't want to do that? What if I wanted to send them to a page that already exists elsewhere? You just use this redirect syntax right here when you return it, and just say redirect : and then the path to it. Again, you don't want to have response body on there. You need to make sure it's not going to send that literally as text to the browser. But that redirect : in front of the path to the correct route. So this is not a template, this is a route. It will say, okay, I already have a get handler for /artworks. That's what I'll now run, and it'll execute that handler. And then it'll just return what it's supposed to return for that page and make sure they land back there. So, this whole process, this idea of having, get and post be at the same route. So you can have /artworks have both a get, handler and a post handler. This is kind of how this works. You've got your view and your browser. You say, you make a get request in order just to get the content that's meant to be rendered on the page. You make a post request at a form submission, and then maybe you say, okay, now I'm going to redirect to another page that already exists. And so then you can just use the syntax instead of sending them to a new template that, that this is the handler to send to that page. This will make more sense when we get into live coding, but again, I want to get through a couple more slides before we start doing that. So bear with me here. It's all going to come together, I promise. All right, now this is one of those slides that I do from time to time where I give you everything all at once, just because I want you to have something you can refer to if you go back to the PDFs to see everything side by side. So don't freak out, because I'm going to unpack this a little bit at a time, but I'm going to show it to you all at once too. So here's the attributes that you can use within, like inside the tags of HTML elements that will, give you the syntax you're looking for that's particular to Thymeleaf. So let's say you want to have some sort of tag, and you say, this is the text that I actually want to display on the page for this element. You can use th:\text, and then you just give it a string that has this placeholder. And that placeholder syntax looks familiar. That's because it's identical to what you guys use in template literals in JavaScript, right? So Thymeleaf uses the same syntax for its placeholders for variables. And then you just have the, an expression or just even a variable name from Java that you're going to be passing in from the controller to the template. And we're gonna go back and look at how to do that in a few minutes. But for now, just know that that's where that's coming from. It's going to be something you're sending to the template. So that would be how you just put text on the page using an element. Th:\each is what you use to loop. So you just say, create a local variable just for use right there in the template, and then give it the name of the list that it's going to be iterating through. Th:\if is a conditional. You just say, give it some Boolean expression. If this is true, display the stuff that's inside these, tags. If not, don't. And here's the opposite, th:\unless. You can say, display this unless this is true, and give it some sort of, Boolean expression. And then there's this fragment syntax. There's two pieces to the fragments. One is to put on the fragment itself that you save over in another file just to give it a name. And then the second part is when you replace it to say, here's where I want this fragment to go. And then you tell it, here's the file you can go get it in, and here's the name, and just tell it where to look, and it'll replace it right there where you need it. Again, bear with me. We are going to unpack these all one at a time, I promise. And then th:\source is a way to, using a special expression here is a way to give the source for a file path or an image. th:\href is a way to refer to a file path for something that's in your directory or even something online. And then, so those are kind of some different attributes that you would place inside tags. Here, let me talk here about these expressions that you're seeing. This is called a link expression when you use the @ symbol. Anything like that like you saw over here, these are both link expressions. And then this is called a variable expression. That's the one where you just, on things like th text and th if, or, this part of the th each, you would just put those variables or expressions inside. And that takes care of variable stuff. And then there's one's called a fragment expression. Now, you may not have seen this in your textbook, and the reason is that it was only very recently introduced and Launch Code hasn't updated it yet. And this is a thing they're eventually going to deprecate the way this is done. But if you see down here with th replace, you may have seen in your textbook that they just did the fragment file name, the double colon, and the fragment name as a string, and didn't actually wrap it inside this fragment expression. And that's because the way it is in your textbook is the old way to do it. And the folks at Thymeleaf want people to start doing it this way instead. So you may want to go ahead and just start doing it this way, just so you're in the habit, because if you do this professionally in the future, you're going to want to make sure you're up with the latest standards. And you will see that the things that I do for you, I'm going to use this newer syntax. Okay, so there is a special Thymeleaf element that you can use to wrap things whenever you don't want to have some sort of, something with structural implications on the page. TH block is what that is. And it allows you to put things like TH each on it without actually creating more HTML and just saying, okay, just loop over the stuff that's on the inside. Another great example is like, let's say you're doing an unordered list, a bunch of bullet points, right? You don't want to put a TH each on a UL tag, because then you'll end up with a whole bunch of ULs. All you want to actually be looped over are the LIs, right? The list items. So this is the kind of thing where you can make use of this as a wrapper to actually provide the syntax without, repeating over or whatever that particular element. Okay, so this is the big picture. This is where we're going. We're going to kind of, do a little bit of all of this as we go throughout the lecture. But if you ever want to see all of this side by side, here it is. I've got everything on one slide for you. Okay. So I want to talk about dynamic data, and then we can do a little bit of live coding and start putting all this stuff together, creating the templates and all that stuff. When you want to pass data from a controller to a template, you are going to need to give it a parameter, a special parameter. And there's this class called model. And I think Chris says this in his videos too, if I remember correctly, but it has nothing to do directly with the idea of the model that is the M in MVC. We're going to be getting into that later. That has more to do with Java classes and things like that. This here is just for the purposes of saying, I want to have a way to set up an object that has a bunch of names of different, variables that you want to be able to use in your template. And we're going to add those as attributes to pass down. Okay, so you just use this model class to do that. Then you use this method add attribute, and you give it first the variable name, and then you give it the value. And you'll notice that the variable name in this examples down here is actually in quotes. It's a string. You pass it to the template as a string, but then when you're, it's still considered a variable as you're using it throughout your template. But just pay attention to that. And I actually think that's the next bullet point. Yes, the variable name should be passed as a string. Look at that. Okay, so let's break down this example. First, we have our, handler. It's a get handler. We're saying, let's say we have a user profile, and this is the handler for that route, okay, for that page. And we're going to send the browser the content, but we also need to pass in some dynamic data. So we're going to say, let's use model, and we'll just call it model. That'll be our object that we use that represents an object of that class. And then we can add an attribute for every single one of these using that object and say model.addAttribute, give it, I want this variable to be called first name, and I want the value to be Bob. And then we'll do another one. Say, I want this variable to be the username, and that's going to be Bob, blah, blah. And then on model.attribute, you do a third one. This is the email, bob.blahblah@blahblog.com. And I hope everybody gets that culture reference. Okay. And then we can just return user/profile, which of course would refer to a template that is structured in a similar way to the route. That's very common to just make your templates structured the same way in terms of the path. So that's what's going on here. We're returning the path to the template that's in that templates folder in resources. Up here, it's referring to the route in the browser. You know, it would be localhost 8080/user/profile, right? So just so you understand the distinction between those two, that's important. But this is how we do it. This is how we pass variables down so that we can use them in those templates and have that content added dynamically to the template. Okay. So there's those methods, the add attribute methods. There's those variable names as strings. And those are the values that will be displayed on the page. Wherever we have, you know, we say we want these variables to be, it'll put these values in for us. Okay, so let's look at how to do that on the template side. So you've got this HTML template and you're like, okay, how do I make it a Thymeleaf template? By using some Thymeleaf syntax. Let's say we've passed in those names or those variables, right? First name, username, and email through our controller. And this is our user profile template. So we can use this attribute THText, and then that will put whatever we want between the tags for, you know, for a heading 1 or a paragraph or whatever, a heading 3. The variable expression, remember that's the placeholder, like this and this. Those are what receive the data from the controller that are part of that, you know, the attributes that you added. And then any text that you put in is just going to use a default value unless you've provided something else through some other logic. So you can give it, and the default value is actually like, for this is a good example. So this first one, it'll just say hello until it actually receives a first name. And then once it does, it'll change dynamically to whatever's in here. So you can actually hard code something in here, but then say, here's the dynamic information once you have that value. So again, the attribute is th:\text. The values with the dynamic data coming from the controller method are, you know, first name, username, and email. Although you'll see here, I was concatenating together something that's hard coded with a variable name. That's totally cool. You'll find yourself doing that from time to time. And then there's that default value that'll just be there until it has a value for first name. Okay, let's do a little bit of coding over here. So we're coming back to our art gallery project now. This is the project that's going to get us through the end of this unit. We're going to build it bit by bit. Right now, if I run this, all right, it started up on 8080. So let me get that up. This will look an awful lot like it did last class. There's not really any sort of, you know, styling yet. We have some, you know, very simple link here. It takes us to that list. Remember, we have that hash map with some hard-coded values that kind of takes the place of as if we were pulling something from a database, even though we're not yet. It's just some test data for now. And then we have this link that takes us to the form to be able to add. So we're at /artworks. We click this, we get to /artworks/add. And now our handler and our controller for that is giving us, you know, this form, right? That's the get mapping for /add. So I can fill this out and say water lilies. And right now it's taking me to another page. It's not redirecting. It's just giving me something different. And then I can go back and view the updated list if I want. Now, what we're going to do is redirect so that we can just go straight here. But you can see that it's been updated and now it's displaying the new value. So that's all we have. It looks just like it did last time pretty much. And everything is still just hard coded. We have response body on this entire class so that it applies to every single one of the methods in here. So right now, if I wanted to not have this post mapping produce new content for /add when there's a post, instead I could just redirect, right? So in order to do that, because, hold on, let me close this so we have more space. There we go. I need to take response body off of the entire class because I don't want it to apply to that post handler anymore. So I'm going to take that off. But temporarily, if I still want these to work, I need to add them at the method level. So for all of these get handlers, I'm going to go ahead and add it to them individually, but make sure I don't add it here. And then what I can do is actually just say right here, I want to redirect colon, and then this is already for /artworks, so I actually don't need to do anything but redirect because this is the basis of it, and so it should actually, that may or may not work. Let's try it. I'm gonna restart this. Let's see what happens. I'm like arguing with myself in my head about whether that's gonna work or not. Let's go back to the very beginning. And let's go here, click here to add another artwork. Yeah, okay. So in this case, we need to give it the whole path. So we're gonna do /artworks, that's what I thought. And then we should see it actually. So let's go back to add and do our adding. All right, and now it works. Okay, so even though normally, like, if you actually have this set as, you know, this is the base path for all of the handlers in here, and that's why this one /artworks is just represented as an empty string, and this one is /add, and this one's also /add for the post. But if we want to redirect it, you do need to specify what that route is because it's not going to be looking at this to get it. Okay, does that make sense? That's the theory I was just proving. Okay, so now we are able to do this because we're no longer returning this as the response body. We're literally saying, read this as syntax for redirecting instead and send us to this route. And we have a handler for that right here. This is the handler that represents /artworks. So now it's going to return this page and we just redirected it there. Okay, so that's how to do redirect. Now let's go over and do a simple example. We're going to switch over to our gallery controller. So remember, this is our page that's right at localhost 8080. This page right here. We want to change this and start using a Thymeleaf template. So let's create our first template and we're going to modify this handler here to be able to return the content from the template rather than returning a response body that's just, you know, this hard-coded text here. Okay, so first order of business is to come down here and open up the resources folder. And right inside here, alongside static, we're going to create a new directory. We're going to call it templates. And then inside there, we'll say new, and you'll notice I have this Thymeleaf option in addition to having HTML file. If you don't have this yet, there's a way to create it. You just go into edit file templates right here, and it pops this up, and you can use the plus sign here to create a new template. And then just add this content as kind of your base. So that every single time you want to create a new Thymeleaf template, it starts with this, and then you can build it from there. And the important thing is that it's not just a regular HTML file. It has, you know, this XMLNS right here for, you know, the Thymeleaf link that will allow it to interpret it as, you know, and change it over from your Thymeleaf to syntax into, I'm having trouble spitting this out, Thymeleaf syntax into regular HTML that the browser interprets and puts on the page. So you can make it real easy on yourself by creating this. And then once you have it, it'll always be available for you to say, I want a new Thymeleaf file, not just a new HTML file. And then I can give it a name. So the first one I want to create is index.html. This is just going to be the page that automatically exists at localhost 8080. Okay, so there's a couple things we want to do here. Sorry. This is one of those times when I'm going to be heading towards something different than what I'm doing for you right now. And so I kind of have to piece this together. Let's see. So if I go back to here, we can set some stuff in the head that's going to actually, pull in some fonts from Google. It pulls in a style sheet. And I've even got some Bootstrap in here. I'm going to use some Bootstrap classes from time to time for part of my styling. And so I can pull that in the head, and then I can actually also have a header, which I need to grab from here. So hold on just a second. And so inside my body, I'm going to have a header that has, the name of the Midtown Art Gallery, and it's got some, nav links here that are, most of them will not work, but our artworks one will, because that's the only page we have so far. And then below that, I can actually have some of the content that we had before, where we just kind of say welcome and all of that. So let me pull this in. All right. And then we're piecing it all together here. Okay. So it's missing something. There we go. Missing something else. Apparently I did not do a very good job with my copying. All right. There we go. All right. So if I rerun this, you'll notice that I already have some syntax in here where for this H1, I don't have any content between the tags. And it just says I'm expecting, heading text. And I'm going to put, need welcome text here just as the default for now. And we'll give this a run. I also have this, but I'm going to add this later. So let's get rid of that. This is what happens when I cut and paste, guys. All right, so let's run this, and then it's up. Oh, and of course it's not going to actually show. We haven't pointed to our template yet, have we? So this is a good a good little lesson. You can create a template, but it doesn't mean anything until your controller has been refactored to point to it. So let's go back over to our gallery controller. And now we don't want this to be what we return anymore. So we need to take a response body off so that it won't return this anymore. And instead, we're going to say return index. And Spring knows when we do this and we don't have a response body, go look at the templates folder and find, whatever is here. And in this case, index is the first, it's right here. It's referring to the first index. We are going to have an additional index file in some like subdirectories later. And so we'll just have the right path for those. But from here, we just want return index. So we can do that, and I can go ahead and run this without us, sending any sort of variables in or yet. Let's just go ahead and start here, just to make sure that we're switching over from using the response body to using this. All right, and now we get some of our information. Interestingly enough, we do not have that that default thing, but I think it's just because it doesn't know what to do with this entire thing because this doesn't even exist. It's, oh man, let me fix that. If this existed, but it didn't have a value, it would show us this. So like, I could take this syntax off and just return it to a regular HTML, H1. And we'll see, yeah, need welcome text here. Okay. So in order to have it be work with a variable, we'll go ahead and put this back in, but it's not going to mean anything until we have something we're passing in that is a value for this variable heading text. So let's go back to the controller and create this. This is where we need this model class. And we need, so we're typing, we're just using, regular strict typing that JavaScript requires, saying I want an object called model of the model class type. And then in here, we can just go ahead and put model.add attribute. And then say I want something that's called heading text. And I want you to give it the value welcome. That's it. We're just going to hard code the value there. It's not coming from anywhere else. Okay, now that that exists and we put the correct syntax in the template, we now see our value welcome show up. Okay, so that's pretty good for getting us started. Who has questions about what I've done so far? Anyone? No questions. Okay, that's fine. Let's talk about looping. Because we need to talk about this before we can make any more changes to our artworks page, which displays a list of artworks, right? So we need to know how to loop in order to do that. So if you are iterating over a collection, we can use this th each attribute, and that will actually allow us to do that very easily. So we're going to set a local variable and use a colon to separate it and say I want, which is, pretty much the same way you do it with Java, right? But except that you don't have to give it a type when you're in the Thymeleaf template. So you just create the local variable directly. It's not like, string book, it's just book. And then colon, and then you'll have this placeholder, this variable expression. And that's where you're going to actually put the variable that you're passing down using that model object. So that local variable will come from the controller, and then whatever HTML element needs to be repeated, you can put it directly on that tag unless it's something that you don't want that particular one repeated. You want something inside it. That's where the TH block comes in. So I have two examples for you here to help you to demonstrate that, because it really is a better practice to put the TH each on a TH block element and then just put whatever content you want to be repeated inside of it. So the first example would be if you're not doing that. So I've got a paragraph and I'm saying I just want multiple copies of this paragraph element, but I want each one to represent a different book. So I could say, TH each, give me, for every single book that's in the list of books that I'm passing to this template, display the book.title as the text that goes between these p tags. And then it'll do it for you, and you'll just have a whole string of P's. What if you, have multiple things that you need to do, or you have something like I mentioned before, like an unordered list with a bunch of list items or something like that? That's where you want to use a TH block and put the TH each on that block. And then everything that's inside of it, you can, create the content for those using TH text for each one. And then just, give it the values based on the individual books from that books list that you passed in using that local variable. So book.title, book.author, book.num pages, right? All of that can be done just using that book object of the books. And we're going to be working tonight just with plain strings. We're not going to be working with objects that have multiple properties. But if you did have an object with multiple properties, and you will once we start working with more complex data and with databases, this is what it's going to look like. Okay, I want to, let's see. Oh yeah, let's just go back over this. So again, these are attributes, TH each, that are being placed on the P and on this TH block. These are the local variables we create to represent one thing at a time. This is the variable expression that has the collection that we're iterating through. And this TH block is a wrapper element. Okay, so that's looping. Let's go ahead and code this. So we're going to come over here to our artwork controller. And you remember that here I'm going to close this. There we go. We had this, hash map, right? And what I did was I said, I want to create a bunch of list items. And so I was using a string builder to go through the key set and get the, get the values for all of this stuff with both the ID and the artwork itself to put all this together bit by bit. we don't need to do this anymore because Thymeleaf is going to do it for us. We're going to do all of our iteration in the template. So for here, all we need to do is pass the collection down. However, you may recall this is a hash map and not an array list. So what we need to do is have one more thing that we're basically we can get rid of this, no looping here. And here, instead of making this a string builder, we're going to just make this a list of strings. And we're going to say, I want a new array list, and I want to give it this, iterable of that is all of the values that are coming from these key value pairs. So in order to do that, all I really have to do is say artworks.values. And it goes and it pulls out all of these strings that are the values of each of these key value pairs, and it puts them in something that's iterable, and then we just convert it to an array list like this. And then that's something that our template will be able to iterate through very easily. So we're going to need to create a template for this. So I'm going to work both ends against the middle. We also need to take response body off because we are not going to be returning HTML anymore. We're going to point this to a template. So what we want to do is have this return artworks/index. And again, this is the route. This is /artworks up here. That is the route. When I want to return a path to a template, I need to explicitly say what it is and what that path is relative to the templates folder. So what we need to do here is create first a new directory called artworks. And then inside artworks, we can create a new Thymeleaf template called index. And then this is going to be the default file for the /artworks route, also called index, but it's artworks/index. So this is what we will point to from here. And then all we need to do is pass down this list to that template so that it will be able to use it. Let's finish up the controller first, and then we will go and fill out the template that we need. So we've got this list, and now we just need to use model, which means we need to actually pass in from the model class a model and say model.add attribute. And then we want to call it artwork list. I'm going to be consistent, and we're going to pass in artworks list. I just realized I called this artwork, and this I'm gonna change it. You guys still with me? I accidentally locked my screen suddenly. I don't know how I did that. Okay, I must have hit something. Okay, so here we have artwork list, and yeah, I'm gonna be consistent and make sure it's singular for what I did. Okay. So we'll pass that down, and now we have something we can work with to iterate over in the template. And that template is at artworks/index. So let's go over to that file now, right up here, and let's start building this out. So if I want to have a lot of the same content on the page as I did for the main page, I'm going to need to copy this header. I'm going to need to copy this body. So I'm going to come over and I'm going to do that. Basically say, give me everything that's here and make it this instead. And then after this, we can, add what's actually unique to this page. Okay. So I'm going to have a main, and we're going to do this. So I want to do this as a table. So we're just going to put a quick table together, and all we have are strings of the artwork's name, right? We haven't gotten complex yet with our data. We don't have, the artist's name or the style or any other information about the artwork yet. That's okay. We're going to get there. For now, I'm going to keep it simple so we can just focus on the Thymeleaf stuff, and we're just going to have strings. So it's going to be a table with exactly one column, but we're still going to use a table because that's where we're headed. So let's just set up the table first. Actually, do I want to do that? Yeah, no. I want to make things easy on myself. Okay, I'm going to use a TH block because I'm going to be surrounding multiple elements. And I don't want multiple tables. Right, I just want multiple rows. So I'm going to do this. I'm going to set up a table. And I have like classes and stuff in here. This is like pretty sure this is yep. This is Bootstrap stuff. We got Bootstrap classes that are going to make our table look nice immediately without me having to do a whole lot of work. Okay. So we can have a header section, and I'll just have, you know, TH title, and that's all we're going to have because we have one column. But then after this, after the header row, we want to actually have multiple TRs. Now, in this instance, I'm going to actually do my TH each directly on the TR because I really do want multiple TRs. And so this is an instance where it makes sense to do it this way. The TH block I did up here actually has nothing to do with looping. It has to do with conditionals. So I'm going to leave it there, and we're going to come back to it. So I'm going to say I want a single artwork. I want one of these for every single artwork out of the artwork list that's being passed in by the controller method. And once I have that, we can display the cell, and in between those is the text, but I'm going to use Thymeleaf to give me dynamic content for that text using th text as the attribute. And then in the string, I'll say, give me a variable expression. And that's where we use the local variable that we've created right here to represent each one of these. So every artwork will have a unique piece of text in that cell from this artwork list that's being passed in. Okay, so I think this is going to be enough to give us what we want for now until we talk about conditionals. So let me see. Oh, we do have one more thing. I also want between header and main, I want to have one more like a secondary nav bar that gives us our link that goes to our ad form. So I'm going to add that in. Okay, so let's restart this and see if everything works or if I screwed it up. We'll find out. All right, so let's go over here to the collection, and there it is. I'm missing a header, apparently. Oh yeah, I see it now. I'm missing a header, so I can add that in, but I've got my table. It's got the title, and then it has all the rows. Something about it doesn't look right, so I think I missed a class, but I'll have to fix that. And then we have the link that gets us to our form, which is still looking, you know, it's the old way, right? We haven't done a template for this yet, so we'll get there. But we're displaying our data. It looks nice, and we have all this information. So we're looping over, and it's all working there. Okay, so let's get back over to our slides here. I want to talk about conditionals, and then we're going to take our 5-minute break, and then we'll come back to talk about fragments. Okay, so conditionals. You can use th if and th unless to control whether something is displayed or not. And you almost always are going to have a Boolean expression for that variable expression to for the logic that it uses to decide. But you may recall this from our previous stuff in JavaScript that there's non-Boolean types that can be truthy or falsy. You can say if something exists or if the length of something is 0, evaluates to 0 or not. So we can do this in conjunction with these logical operators and or, and even not. You can use both the exclamation point, or you can literally use the word not in between variable expressions, or ahead of a variable expression, I guess I should say. And this will give you some control over your content on your page at different points, depending on what the data is and how it evaluates. So in this example, I've got, let's say we've got this, we're kind of going back to this idea of a user user profile, login and register links, some sort of list of some kind. You could say, th if the user's logged in, then show their profile content. Unless they're logged in and you want to show the login and register linked. So you can, have kind of a binary thing here where it's either going to show the profile content or it's going to show the login and register links. And this is very, very common, as you can imagine, to do something like this. And then you can have, your list and say, only display this if the list exists, first of all, because it has to exist before you can check whether it has a size or not. And then if the size is greater than 0. So I'm saying that in a very compact way by just saying some list and some list.size. But what that evaluates is true or false either way, based on whether it exists or not, and based on whether it's 0 or a number greater than 0. Okay, so, and then I'm using that and you'll notice this is important because when I was a student, this tripped me up. And these semantic and or not, they have to be outside the variable expressions, not inside. Okay. Double if you're doing it on the inside, you would be using your Java operator. Like the double and ampersand and the double pipe and stuff like that. Okay, so this is how this works. Let's go over and code it. So let's say on this page of artwork, so we're on this, same page here, we can say, well, what if you didn't have anything to display? You might want to display something else, not just an empty page or an empty table, right? So we can actually change this and add something in, and I'm also going to add my title here that I meant to add. So let me do that inside main. Inside main? Yes, inside main. Okay, so let's say we want to display this entire table. We only want it to display if that list exists. So we're going to say if artwork list, does the artwork list exist? Has it been passed in? And then I'll start another variable expression and say artwork list dot size. And it has more than 0 things in it. It actually has things in the list. So we'll check both of those. And if both of those things are true, then it will display this whole table. And then we could say, okay, well, what's going to happen if, and let's just rerun this just to make sure this works before I do the opposite. Okay, yeah, we got our header, and you'll notice it's displaying because those things are evaluating to true, right? We have 5 things, so the size is 5, the list exists, we're successfully passing it in from our controller. So now we can do the opposite. What happens if we don't have them? Like, let's say we go over to our artwork controller, and I just, comment out those lines so that this is an empty map. Then we could go over and actually have something that will handle the alternate situation. And in this case, I'm actually going to do just a P and say th unless, and then use the exact same logic. So I can copy this as is because we're using unless to be the opposite of if. So unless this is true, and I somehow ended up with extra, there we go. We want to display no artworks to display. Okay, so I have commented this out. This has a size of 0. Let's rerun it and see what we get. No artworks to display. Great. And then the minute I go back and I actually put them back, oops, I was already there, wasn't I? And rerun it. This should disappear and we should not see it, but we should see the table again. Yeah, and we do. Okay. So does anybody have any questions about what I just did? Looping and iteration. No, looping and iteration, same thing. Looping and conditionals. All right, if there are no questions, we're going to go ahead and take our 5-minute break. Lecture probably will go slightly long tonight, but it'll be worth it because you have a lot to learn. All right, I will see you in a few. Okay, welcome back. Before I forget, I want to address a question that was asked in the lecture questions channel. Chris asked, so basically Thymeleaf is to Java what React is to JavaScript. And I would say sort of and not at all. Because in the sense that you're creating the ability to put in dynamic content, but that's about as far as it goes, because the difference with having a view that is created on the back end, which is what we're doing, it means that every time you want to update the page in the browser, you have to make a call to the server on the back end every single time, and it has to resend everything from the controllers for each of those routes. So React is different because it runs in the browser and it does partial updates. I mean, if one piece of information changes, it hones in on that and actually says, okay, I'm just going to update this one little part. And it does it in a virtual DOM that then, updates the real DOM in the browser. So that's what makes React so fast and so responsive, because you can imagine if you were on some sort of page where you're hovering over things and you've got drop down this and stuff is constantly changing and updating on the page. If you were having to make a call to a backend server every single time you wanted to do something like that, it would be virtually impossible. That's why they created JavaScript, because they realized if you want to do form validation, if you want to do anything, you need to be able to do it on the client side, on the browser side. Yeah, so that's kind of the main difference. Okay, so let's get back to our Thymeleaf syntax here. We're going to talk about fragments. The whole concept of fragments is that you create reusable code that you can place in multiple places. Well, that was helpful. Okay, so the Thymeleaf attributes th fragment and th replace can be used anytime you want to insert the code. As I mentioned earlier, one is where you just apply the name, and the other one is where you basically go and specify that name so you can grab it. But you have to have them stored in a file. So it's very common to use a template called fragments.html to hold any fragments. And you can just define them there, give them their names, and then later in your other templates, when you want to use them, you just reference those. So first, define your block of code, use th fragment to give it that name. It has to be unique for that file. And then you can insert it using th replace. And as I said before, use a fragment expression, even though that's not in the launch code curriculum yet. That is the direction they're headed. They're going to deprecate just using a plain string. And then you can indicate both the location and the name and separate those by a double colon. So here is the example. We've got, fragments.html. We've got this definition of this div. We're using th fragment to give it the name header. And then over in another template, you can say, I want a paragraph. It doesn't even have to be the same tag, by the way, guys. You could say you could have it as a P, but then you can replace it and it'll give you a div instead. So use th replace, and then in quotes, have your fragment expression reference both the file and then the name with that double colon in between inside that fragment expression. Okay, so let's go do this, because you may have noticed that when we were creating these two index pages, we had to drop in the same head for both and the same header for both. So let's go to the templates folder. I'm going to put it right here at the top level. I'm going to say I want a new Thymeleaf file, and I want to call it fragments. Actually, I can just call it fragments, and it's going to give it HTML. You don't have to put that part in. Okay, so what I will do is actually grab that head and that we had before. So let's go over. I'm just going to do it from here. We're going to copy this whole head and say this is one of the things that we want to be able to have in all of our files if we want. And so let's just define it in one place and not have to define it in multiple places, where if anything ever changed, we don't want to have to go all those different places and edit every single one. We want to edit it in one place. So I'm going to put it here, and so I'm going to give it a name. I'm going to say th fragment. and equals, and then I'm just going to call this the head. And let me make sure that is yes, what I'm going to do. And then here inside the body, we're going to do the same thing with this header that we want to be able to reuse. So I'm going to put the header in here, and we're going to give this a name. I already have, you'll see, th fragment header. And it has all that stuff. So now I can go over into this file. I can get rid of this entirely, get rid of this entirely. Well, we'll do it this way. I'm gonna take everything but that. Let's just fix it. There we go. And we'll just add in that th replace here. And then this is where we need to use that new syntax here for the fragment expression. So I'm going to use the tilde with the curly braces. And inside there, I'm going to have the file name first, which is fragments. And just like with templates, with other templates, it knows to go look in the templates folder for this. So all you have to do is say fragments, unless you have it like in a subfolder, and then you'd have to give the path. And then we'll just say this particular fragment I'm looking for is called head, because that is what we defined it as. We gave it the name head right here. So if I do that over here, now it's going to go grab that from fragments and replace this entire thing. So I can do the same thing here with the header and just say header th replace equals, we'll do the fragment expression and say fragments is the location, and header is the name of the particular fragment that we want. And here, yeah, and then you could just leave it like that, as long as it's you know, proper HTML syntax there, it'll replace it like as it needs to. Okay, so I could go over now and refresh all of this, and if we go to our localhost 8080, which is the page I just updated, if I did it right, we should still see everything. And we do. The one thing that we don't have here yet is an image, but that's on purpose because I haven't taught you guys about that syntax yet. Sneha, you have a question real quick?
No, just like I mean, it basically fragments are using to give. If we give CSS to that particular fragment, it will be reflected wherever we use in the template, and then like it will maintain the look and feel of the website.
Yeah, literally what's going to happen is that it is going to insert this anywhere you tell it to, and that will show up in the real HTML in the browser. It'll be, you know, it'll all be added in as if you had put it there in the first place. So the browser will, you know, read it and, you know, have all the right files, and yeah.
Okay.
Okay. So we're going to do the same thing now that we did there, and we're going to go over and do it. So I'm actually just going to literally copy these 3 lines, and I'm going to come over to this index page that we did here and replace this whole header up to the head with what we just put in the other one. And now if we restart again and come over here and go to the artworks page, which I can do from this link, or I can do it up here from this one, you'll see that we still have everything the way we were expecting to. We've got you know, the main header, and all of the CSS is intact, so it definitely put the head in place as well. So this is much better, where any additional pages we create, we're going to be able to put this in and automatically get whatever's coming from the fragments file. And if we ever make changes, we'll only have to do it in that one place. All right, so that's fragments. Let's talk about, oh, does anybody else have any questions before I move on to the next thing?
I'm sorry, could you just go back to the last slide real quick?
Yeah, sure. Do you have a question about it?
Oh, no, I just wanted to take a picture of the slide. I like to take
Oh,
pictures.
okay. Yeah, the PDF of this will be available pretty much immediately. In fact, I think it's already there.
Okay.
If you, yeah, I think I uploaded it early, so you probably could already get the PDF if you want it. Okay. Yeah, so let's, anybody else have any questions? Nope, okay. Oops, too far. Oh, am I missing a slide? Guys, am I missing a slide? So my cats went across my keyboard earlier and deleted a bunch of slides, and I thought I replaced them all, but apparently not. Okay, so the other thing to cover, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to jump way back to the slide that has all the stuff on it so I can talk about it. Sorry. Okay, yeah, this is where I want to be. Okay. I want to talk about these ones now. The when you add something with this link expression, this is what I want to do. You can actually do this for images and links and things. So let's just do one example of this where we actually put an image on the main index page. So let's come up here, and just below the main section, I'm going to put an image tag. I'm going to say th source. And then in the quotes, I'm going to use the @ symbol for the link expression. And I'm going to give it this path, images/gallery2.bng. Nope, got to end the link expression and then end the quote. There we go. And I also want to just specify that I want it to automatically place it at 100% from the beginning without having to read the CSS, because otherwise it'll jump. Okay, and you'll notice two things. One is that this is not in quotes inside the expression. You just put that path directly inside the expression placeholder right there, as is. The second thing you'll notice is this is a relative path /images. And that's because this is a shortcut for you. Using this th source says, okay, go and look in resources and in static, and that's where you're going to find images. Static is a special folder. It knows about it. So if you use this, it's going to go look there for it. And sure enough, when it gets there, it sees there's an image folder and it sees that there's gallery 2. So these kinds of things are just really great to use instead of having to put in, try to figure out what the paths are to things. You can just use these shortcuts. They're essentially aliases. So if I do this now and I go back to the main page, there's our image at 100% width. Great. Okay. So let's do it. The last thing to do is we have one more page that we have not yet created a template for, and that is our form, the add form. So what I want to do is essentially, do what we've done here to the other ones and actually convert it to use a template. So I'm going to take response body off, and I'm going to come back and I'm going to return artworks. Actually, I can just say artworks /add this time. And oops, let me make sure I'm in the right spot. Make sure, yes. That's all we have to do to that. And if we go over to here, that means we just have to create that file here. So we'll do a new Thymeleaf template. We'll call it add. And it automatically creates a file called add.html right there. And now we have artwork /add as the file path to the template, which is being returned now instead of a response body. And I don't think there's anything for me to pass in here. There's not. I don't have any sort of like variables for dynamic, rendering that's going to be passed in here. This is just about whenever somebody makes a GET request to /add, send them to this template. That's all we need, and it's just going to be a form. So now we just need to put the into the template what we need, right? So we're going to do the same thing before. We're going to go ahead and borrow what we've got here for the header and the head, and I'm going to copy those and add those in at the top so that we have the same head and the same header that everyone else is using from the fragments file, and then we can go from there. And for this one, I'm going to have that same little admin bar that I used before that creates like a second nav menu. I'm going to put it in this time. But this time the link is going to go back to artworks and say view list of artworks. And so it's kind of, if you're on the form, it'll send you back to the artworks page. If you're on the artworks page, it'll send you back to the form. And that's why we're not using a fragment for this, because they are actually different. And ultimately, as we continue to learn how to do more things here and use databases and stuff, we're going to have like a way to delete artworks off the list and all kinds of stuff. But we're keeping it simple for now. Okay, so inside main, I want to have, wow, what did I just do? There we go. Inside main, I want to have an H3, add artwork. And this is going to be similar to the form we had before. I'm going to go ahead and just copy it for the sake of time because we are getting close to being out of time. We actually might just end up finishing on time, guys. Okay, so again, if you remember from before, you have to have this action on here so it knows where to go. And this is the route, right? So this means go to the controller handler for this path. But in this case, we want to do the post handler and not the get handler. So you may recall that we have two different handlers for /add. One is get, that's going to return the form, and one is post that allows you to process the form and actually add the information that comes back into our artworks map up here, and also then redirect back to the artworks page. So this is on the template side. This is where we're saying, oops, wrong one. Here we go. This is where we're saying whenever the form is submitted, make sure you send it to this path, and then the controller does its job of using the post mapping method to process this properly. And then right here where we have the input that has the name artwork, that corresponds to this variable artwork here. That's actually a parameter, a request parameter. It's a query parameter that's coming in. It looks like this when it submits it: /add ? artwork equals, and then it'll be whatever that text value is that was in that input field. And then when we receive it, we're able to take it, assign the next ID, add it to the map, and then increment up our next ID for the next time. So just as a refresher, that's what's happening. We're just doing it with a template now. So otherwise, it's a simple form. We have an input, we have a button. When the button submits, it goes here and goes to that post handler. So let's do it. Let's restart it. And now we should actually see something that looks like the rest of the website when we go to the form. All right, so I'm going to go to artworks and I'm going to go here to add artwork. And notice how that changed now, and it says view list of artworks. I can go back and forth. And then here I can do like I did before, and let's add water lilies back. And now we see it as part of our table, but using a template that time. All right, so that was the last thing. Does anybody have any last questions? And yeah, I'd have to page way down to go to my questions thing. Anybody have any questions while I do this? Sneha?
So while doing that reading, there were some methods which had both get mapping and post mapping, like for hello. So in both scenarios, but for this one, because we had one request parameter for post, we coded, and we had different logic for both. We coded them separately, right? But in what conditions it might be like same, where we have methods we have to use get and post both in the same method?
You can do it that way if you don't care about it. If you don't care about it, actually, well, I was gonna say if you don't care about it being the same route, but that's still true here. The same content, really, but in this case, it is absolutely because I have different logic that I want to be able to run, and I want to be able to redirect in this case. So yeah, when you have like a form like this, it's just generally a good idea just to separate them out so that you can be very specific about what template or redirecting you're doing, what logic you're running if you're actually, have data that's being returned that you need to do something with. There are, yeah, I think that it's okay. It's absolutely okay to do for very simple things, to do what they were showing you to do in the other examples. But I wanted to demonstrate that it can also be done this way, and this generally is how I prefer to do it.
One example comes to mind. Would it be valid for that case? Then say we have a login page, and then if we put wrong password, then it shouldn't redirect to that one. So both get and post will be same for that. If the password is invalid, something like that.
Possibly, yeah, we'll actually be doing some authentication and authorization stuff at the very end of the unit. And so you'll have an opportunity to kind of see how that all works together.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay, so anybody have any last questions? Nope. Okay, we did good on time. All right. For next class, we're going to talk about models and model binding. So this is the M and MVC. This is where we actually talk about taking Java classes and converting them into something that will work for representing the objects that we want to place into our view with multiple properties, and to be able to kind of do what I was showing you earlier, like if you have book.title, book.author, that sort of thing. There's some really, Spring makes it super, super easy to pass those objects through to the template and for the template to automatically know how to use the object. So there's some great syntax. You'll be learning how to do that. In class 12, we'll be talking about how to add validation to both your model on the model side and also in the forms themselves. And we'll talk about enumerations, which is a special type of thing. And then class 13, as I mentioned, the announcements, there is no lecture for class 13. You will start by having a panel of alumni to answer your questions about all the things that are coming up for you. And then you will have the rest of class to basically have kind of like a catch-up class where you can just work on your stuff, have access to your TAs for questions or demos or help. And then class 14 is where we start to get into databases. And I want to point out that this is a different curriculum. There's actually 2 chapters in an SQL curriculum that we'll be jumping over to, unless it's changed last time I checked. This is so you'll have the links to that in Canvas. And you'll be able to do the prep work for that. And we'll do part 1 in class 14 and part 2 in class 15. All right, so for studio tonight, you're going to do something called Spa Day, and you're actually going to use this for a couple different classes, at least 2 or 3 different classes. But this is your first one. You're going to fork and clone the starter code, which I'm told the link was, I think somebody posted something about the link being wrong. We'll make sure that you guys have the right link. And then you're going to just modify the code they give you. Now, I want to tell you right now, there's a lot of code, but they've already done a lot of the work for you. You're going to see all kinds, you're going to see fragments. You're going to see all kinds of Thymeleaf syntax already in place. You're going to see some methods that have been written for you because they want you to just jump in and kind of finish it up. So this is a great opportunity to practice the art of reading someone else's code so that you understand what's going on before you jump in. So definitely take a tour of the code and make sure you understand what's happening, then follow the instructions, and you're going to be displaying data dynamically. You're going to be iterating over collection, displaying things conditionally. You're going to use fragments, all of it. And it's a useful little studio. So I do not have an fair disclosure. I do not have this recorded yet. Because I have not had, I was traveling all weekend and have not had time, but I will do it as quickly as possible. And if it's not tonight, it will be tomorrow morning, and I will get it to you guys. But I will have the lecture recording up later tonight. And for sure, and you guys already have the slides. They're already down or uploaded to that folder where the PDFs are. So I hope you guys have a great night and have fun with the studio, and I will see you in the next class.